Harrying of the North was a brutal and devastating campaign launched by William the Conqueror in 1069 to 1070 to suppress the rebellious north of England. The rebellion was sparked by a refusal of English nobles to accept Norman rule and was particularly intense in the counties of Northumbria, Durham, and Yorkshire. William responded with extreme force, unleashing a campaign of terror and destruction that would come to be known as the Harrying of the North. The campaign lasted for more than a year and involved the systematic destruction of farms, villages, and towns, as well as killing of thousands of peoples. The reason for this brutal tactic is still a matter of debate amongst historians, but many argue that he was trying to crush rebellion and establish authority over the North. Others also suggest that there was a desire for revenge against those who had resisted his rule. Whatever the motivation, the consequences of this campaign were devastating. Armies burned crops, slaughtered livestock, and destroyed entire communities. Many of the people who survived the initial onslaught were forced to flee to forests, where they were then hunted down and killed by Norman soldiers. The scale of destruction was unprecedented in English history. Estimates suggest that up to a third of the population of the North died as a result of the campaign, either through direct violence or through starvation and disease in the aftermath. Nevertheless, our story today comes from Durham, in particular one written by Symeon of Durham, a post-conquest monk. Now this miracle comes from the community of St. Cuthbert at Durham, in particular a bishop who, whilst in flight, fleeing with his community from the Harrying of the North with the body of St. Cuthbert on their way to Lindisfarne, is in pursuit by a certain lord who is attempting to seek harm on the community. And so we cut now to the bishop and his vision. The Bishop of Durham lay down to rest for a while in the middle of a field, where he fell asleep and saw a clear vision of the death of the aforesaid Lord Guilo. The vision is thus: I was taken to Durham, and there it seemed to me that I was standing in the church when I saw two men of the highest authority who stood before the altar and looked towards the east. One of them was a middle-aged man, whose vestments had the dignified features of a reverend bishop. The other, who stood on his right, and was clad in a robe of reddish colour, a noble stature, and the appearance of a very handsome young man. While I was yearning to approach them, but in no way dared to do so, the young man pointed to me, asking if I knew the identity of that episcopal personage. When I replied I did not know, he said, "He is your lord, that is, the holy Bishop Cuthbert." At once I threw myself to his feet, begging him to come to the aid of his church. Shortly afterwards they bowed their heads to the altar and together set off. Looking around, Cuthbert called to me as I was following at a distance. "Tell me, Ernan, do you know who that young man is?" "I do not know, my lord," I replied. "This," he said, "is St. Oswald." Then they went together a short distance on the southern side of the city, and there they stopped. The bishop called to me to come, and when I looked down as I was ordered to, I saw a valley of infinite depth, full of souls of men. There, the Lord Guilo Michael was being tormented with appalling sufferings, for he lay stretched out in the fullest of places, and run through from one side of his body to the other with a sharp scythe, he suffered intolerable tortures. St. Cuthbert asked me if I knew anyone there. I replied I recognized Guilo. "That is he," the saint said, "for he has died and been consigned to these miseries and sufferings." "But Lord, he is not dead," This evening he dined safe and sound in his home. And I say, said he, that he is indeed now dead. For he and others whom you see with him are compelled to suffer these agonies because they have infringed my peace and have done harm to me through my people. And so, like an assassin in the night, the bishop then awoke the next day to tell his companions of the news, of which they were in disbelief. Nevertheless, soon townspeople report to the bishop that certain members of Guilo's household arrived and announced that their lord had died that very night. This vision is symbolic as it's a product of this new age of medieval sainthood, whereby saints such as Cuthbert that we see here, despite being dead for hundreds of years, were now actively participating in politics, warfare, and the protection of their people. And of course, this is reminiscent of a proto-inferno that the Divine Comedy, centuries later will come to draw on. And so, we see the bishop and Cuthbert kind of taking on the role of Dante and Virgil in this kind of apocalyptic fascination. And so there we have it. Thank you for watching.